WTOL-TV, Toledo. Straight from the newsroom, this is Toledo 11 News.
Just another day on the job for a YMCA worker.
Until she came across this.
Were set up and students were painting welcome signs.
It wasn't quite the thrill of the open road, more like the parking lot of Perrysburg Commons.
It will make its debut.
Just about the only event making news today.
2,000 carryout orders were handled.
Time to pop open the WTOL-11 vault with me, Dan Cummins, a place where the shoulder pads are wide, the music is bold, and the news still hits home. This week, we're rewinding to May of 1988. George Michael ruled the radio, neon was practically a lifestyle, and Toledo was turning up the heat literally, from a blistering drought drying out Ohio's farmland to a party in the park with new rules on booze. WTOL-11's reporters were on the scene tracking every headline, so grab your shades because we're diving back into a week that was as colorful as consequential. So here we go, May 11th, 1988. The style is bold. We're talking bright colors, bomber jackets, blazers. It wasn't just fashion that was hot, it was literally hot. That summer brought one of the worst droughts to Ohio. Meteorologists tracked more than 40 days with temps 90 degrees or above, and there was almost no rain to be found. Dick Berry and Evan Rosen kick off this week's WTOL 11 Vault with farmers worried about the weather.
The soil around Wood County is cracking from dryness. Only 1.5 inches of rain has fallen during April and May, less than half of what's needed to raise a good crop. George Riker wears two hats. Not only is he a farmer, but a seed dealer. The question to farmers hasn't been whether to plant, but plant deep or plant shallow.
I have customers that have planted them 2 inches deep a week and a half ago, and their beans are up. I've got fellows that have planted them 1 inch deep, and they're still sitting in dry dirt.
Dan Wilson is heading into his fields for the first time. He can't wait any longer, but feels his no-till method of farming is an advantage.
When you leave the ground undisturbed, you don't seem to lose near as much moisture to the atmosphere as you do going over it with tillage equipment.
The next 2 weeks is a crucial time for Dan. 1.5 inches of rainfall would do the trick. If not,
if we don't find moisture at, say, 2 inches deep, we'll then, in fact, have to stop planting and wait for rainfall.
Ideal weather conditions will make a golfer mad, a farmer smile.
Well, where we had a 2-day rain and it accumulated to probably 1 inch and 1.5 inches where it would come down real slow.
There's a saying that a farmer usually works until it rains. If that's the case, then George Riker believes there must be a lot of tired farmers around the heartland this spring.
Corn is up a dime and wheat's up 14 cents.
Crazy is the best way to describe the day these commodity traders are having. Grain futures are running their highest in nearly 5 years as crops wither. Corn and beans are hitting their price limits on the Chicago Board of Trade, and buy orders are piling up.
It's real busy. We're trying to do double duty and try and keep everybody's position in line.
Out here on the farm, the dry spring is both good news and bad news. The bad news is obvious, crops are dying, but the good news is the price of the remaining crops could soar. Don Sherman is digging up dirt in his dusty cornfield. He's finding out a recent rain has hardly helped.
It's gone on long enough that we get these fronts coming through and we don't get any rain out of them, and we get severe weather, and You know, we get a tenth or two of rain, and
Just doesn't do it.
It just doesn't do it.
Farmers say 2 weeks is all their crops can wait. If there's no major rain by then, the planting season could end in disaster. And since cows eat grain, the drought could drive up the price of a steak. Evan Rosen, Toledo 11 News in Wood County.
Here in 2025, Party in the Park is making a comeback. Local bands are headlining this year. In 1988, the most popular songs sounded a bit different. We're talking One More Try and Faith by George Michael. And we can't Rick-roll you because of copyright concerns, but Never Give You Up by Rick Astley was getting a lot of play. On May 12th, time to get ready for the first summer concert in downtown Toledo. And Amy Ashcroft found out there were new rules when it came to drinking.
The rallies by the river are a proven success, but this year organizers hope to smooth out the rough edges.
Get your coolers over here!
What people will notice is the changes that we've made are what we're trying to do is ensure a safe and successful and fun event for the entire community.
This year you'll see more local bands, more security personnel, and more money to buy a beer. A 14-ounce draft was $1 in the past. Now it's $1.50.
A 50-cent raise is kind of steep. It really is. You know, they want people to come down and support the downtown. And I really don't think raising the price of beer is exactly good business.
I'll probably go listen to the entertainment. I'm sure I'll still have a couple beers, but I still think it's too high.
The beer price hike is part of an effort to keep ralliers sober, downtown restaurant owners happy, and minors out of trouble. Beer buyers will be ID'd if necessary, have their hand stamped, and can purchase only 2 beers at a time. There's also a designated driver program.
These precautions are basically to keep out that problem with minors and also to encourage people to drink what they can handle and depend on friends when they drink one too many.
And finally, if you're looking for a place to park, don't come here to the Middle Grounds. What used to be a popular parking spot for downtown events is soon going to be a construction site for new condos. Organizers say your best bet is to try the city parking garages, Vistula and Port Lawrence. They're free and within a short walk of the rallies. Amy Ashcroft, Toledo 11 News.
May 1988 brought some significant events in U.S. history. The Supreme Court ruled police could search trash without a warrant. The U.S. Surgeon General warned the country that nicotine was addictive like heroin and cocaine. And a new group of U.S. citizens included an 85-year-old woman with a story you have to hear. It's a story Toledo 11's Julie Malkin brought us as part of the evening news on May 13th, 1988.
Rafaela Limon has lived in Toledo for almost 60 years. At 85, she's seen a lot, including her family grow to include 43 great-grandchildren and 9 great-great-grandkids. But until today, she was an alien, a Mexican citizen living legally in the U.S.
When she arrived in 1929, she said that in those days it was very difficult to become a citizen, and you had to go through a lot.
Rafaela relies on her great-granddaughter Rafa to translate for her. She doesn't speak English or read or write in Spanish. Rafaela was happy living as an alien resident. She and her husband traveled without problems each year to her hometown of Rio Verde in central Mexico. But when Rafa and her husband moved to Germany with the Air Force, she had to become a citizen.
To get a U.S. passport, she said, well, how can I? I'm not a citizen. So they slowly started up the process and go through the paperwork of applying for naturalization finally, so that they could get a passport and come see me.
Rafaela has appreciated her life in America. She knows she'd never have had such a good life in Mexico.
She can't explain how much completely happier she has been here than anything she could have ever possibly had in her own country.
And as any good American, she plans to celebrate her new status by voting in the next election. Julie Malkin, Toledo 11 News.
Of course, May 13th was a Friday. How appropriate. One of the top films that week, Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. And while that story focuses on Crystal Lake, our next story is all about Lake Erie. In fact, heading into the weekend, people in Ottawa County were worried there wasn't enough space, not on the water, but at the docks. Dick Berry takes us to what is now called Anchor Point Marina.
Too much of a good thing continues to frustrate area fishermen. The word has spread.
Lake Erie is the walleye capital of the world.
What's not spreading along the shoreline is dock space. Case in point, Flights Marina. 200 slips, all booked for the summer. Owners still get 20 phone calls a day for reservations. Chris Flights would like to expand, but can't.
The mouth of our canal needs some fixing, and until that's fixed, the Corps of Engineers, who takes care of that, is not issuing any permits to expand.
And the Corps isn't allowing new docks or expansion of old ones because some canals are overloaded with boaters. One charter boat captain thinks this is leading to other hazards.
They're selling thousands of boats each month, and there's just no place to put them but on trailers. And it's even worse when they trailer them in because it backs up everywhere.
Dick Schaller has fished Lake Erie for 70 years and leases dock space. He thinks more dock space can only help the area.
It's a way out of letting the hair down, see? And it's a good recreation.
You should have no problem landing a walleye this summer. Landing dock space, though, will be next to impossible.
That was Dick Berry. The music world mourned on May 15, 1988. Singer, songwriter, and guitarist Ray Orbison died on that date. His distinctive voice and songwriting inspired generations, as art tends to do. And while it wasn't about the music, the village of Whitehouse was all about the lost arts 37 years ago with a festival dedicated to just that. Great music, huh? You've seen the stories on the news. Someone gets a massive, unexpected bill. There may be some back and forth with the city or utility company, and sometimes there's a solution. But on May 17th, 1988, it really was a mistake that didn't matter. Dick Berry talks to a senior citizen who was billed big bucks and had to pony up.
Eleanor Shellhays hasn't paid her water bill since 1983. That's not to say, though, she hasn't tried.
They say don't worry about it. Oh, that comes every 3 months, and that was all. They hung up, so after that, I didn't call no more.
Then came a letter in March. Pay up or else your water will be cut off. The city of Toledo said Eleanor owed just over $1,000. That's bad news for a 69-year-old woman living on a fixed income of $350 a month with house payments.
I thought, my gosh, how am I going to pay that?
Eleanor's sister, Gertie, came to the rescue. She paid the bill because of her sympathy for senior citizens.
They're all trying to do their best to maintain their dignity and their independence. She could go on welfare, but she refuses it.
And how did all this happen? It turns out a faulty city computer billing system is the problem.
That was an old computer system that had many faults, and we replaced it in 1985. But her history just stops in May of '83, and the reason is unknown.
I do the best I can, whatever I get. And that's all what anybody can do.
Eleanor says the whole incident has left her a nervous wreck, and to top it all off, she now owes her sister $1,000. But Gertie says not to worry about a thing, at least until Eleanor gets her house paid for. Dick Berry, Toledo 11 News.
We round out this week on the WTOL 11 Vault on May 18th, 1988. Like today, the Fermi 2 nuclear power plant stood along the lakeshore, and on that day it was all about safety. Janice Lane shows the drills designed to protect people living nearby.
Mock emergency was held at the Fermi 2 nuclear power plant under the pretense of high radiation levels detected in the plant's steam lines. The next step, getting the word out.
We do know that it is someplace inside the containment building, and hopefully at the next briefing we'll have an opportunity to tell you where that is.
A series of news briefings are staged at Monroe Community College. That's the designated headquarters should a nuclear accident occur. The Federal Emergency Management Agency critiqued the dry run and will issue a report in the coming weeks.
We fully intend at Detroit Edison to operate the plant in a safe manner. We are being regulated by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that have inspectors on site at all times. We have periodic inspections to ensure that we're in compliance with the laws.
In the event of an emergency, the state of Michigan contacts Emergency Planning Ontario in Toronto. Many of the Canadians here in Amherstburg, Ontario, look across Lake Erie at the Fermi plant less than 10 miles away. They're concerned about the time it takes an EPO officer to travel from Toronto to Michigan before word gets back here to them.
We've been saying all along that we need independent monitoring over here of the plant operation. We want our own computer system linked directly to the control room over there so that we know on this side of the border what is happening with Fermi 2. The way we see it now, we figure that the plant is so plagued with problems that it's eventually going to shut itself down and they're going to run out of money.
School children in Ontario's western Essex County were rehearsing evacuation procedures should radioactive material be leaked into the atmosphere. Further down Ontario's Highway 18, some high school students in Harrow claim it's hard to rest easy when the nuclear power plant is only a few miles away in clear view. They say it's that concern that led them to express their feelings in this mural.
We feel that if there was ever an accident, that it would be disastrous to our area. And since it is one of the 5th worst plants in the nation, we felt that like it was too strong a point to overlook.
Rather than panic, here's a brief recap of what you should do in the event of a nuclear emergency. If you hear a siren with a high-low, up-and-down pattern, you should immediately go indoors and stay tuned to this or any EBS radio or TV station. If you happen to be in a car or other vehicle, close your windows and shut off the engine to avoid possible contamination in your immediate airspace. Be sure to listen to further instructions as outlined by your EBS station. An evacuation is suggested when a large amount of radioactive material is released from the plant. You're advised to follow the evacuation route announced over the EBS station for your area. Janice Lane, Toledo 11 News, Essex County, Ontario, Canada.
So that was May 1988, a week of hot temps, big tunes, even bigger headlines. From the summer drought that scorched Ohio fields to Rick Astley rolling his way up the charts, one thing's for sure, history never goes out of style. I just got back from a week with the Navy in Norfolk, Virginia, so we leave you with another trip back to 1995. Toledo 11's Jeff Heitz introducing us to a brand new submarine with a proud connection to the Glass City. Until next time, we'll keep the vault sealed, but never locked.
February 24th, 1995. Commissioning Day for the USS Toledo. On this day, the boat is officially accepted into the fleet of the United States Navy, joining more than 50 other fast attack submarines now in service. The modern-day U.S. nuclear submarine basically is divided in two, the main propulsion spaces and everything else. The improved Los Angeles-class sub is 360 feet long. Picture it sailing into the University of Toledo's glass bowl, where it would stretch from goalpost to goalpost. The USS Toledo is home-ported in Norfolk, Virginia, at the world's largest naval base. 100,000 military and civilian employees work here. That equals a third of the population of Toledo. Norfolk also is home to about 100 other ships, from aircraft carriers on down. 24 fast attack submarines are based here. The newest, the USS Toledo, is ready for sea trials. The USS Toledo can launch either Tomahawk cruise missiles or torpedoes. The sub is capable of reaching 75 to 80% of the world's landmass with incredible accuracy. The dark areas on this map show the regions out of range. As you can see, there aren't many. It's quiet down here in the torpedo room right now. Some men even sleep here. But when the order goes out, manned battle stations, it doesn't take much to move one of these torpedoes, even though each one weighs more than 3,400 pounds. The sub's captain and his officers eat here, the wardroom, probably the second roomiest space on the boat. The enlisted men's mess is the largest space, although aboard the Toledo it's called the bullpen in honor of the mud hens. But as big as it is, with 116 enlisted men, the sailors have learned to eat and run and let the next man in. Space is at a premium everywhere. Beds are called racks. They're stacked in threes with several stacks to each compartment. Just getting into some of them takes either great ingenuity or gymnastic abilities. While there are no height limitations on submariners in the U.S. Navy, these bunks, or racks, are really more comfortable for somebody about 5'8" rather than somebody 6'4" like me. One more reason why I'm happy I was on a destroyer when I was in the Navy. Spare time on the USS Toledo. Recreation is what you make of it, from viewing one of 300 movies on board to just spending a few quiet minutes alone. Another day on the sub is about to end, 400 feet below the ocean's surface. There will always be another mission, another assignment for the Toledo somewhere out there below the horizon. But wherever she goes, she carries more than the name of a city in Northwest Ohio. She carries a proud, determined crew, one in which the city of Toledo can take a great deal of pride. I'm Jeff Heitz. Thanks for joining us. Good night.